Let's just start with who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah. So my name is John. I am currently based in Denver, Colorado, and I'm a music producer, audio engineer, and songwriter.
Awesome, man. And a legend in the making.
That's what I'm going for.
A legend in the making. What was the so you've been in Dark Label now in our community for what, a little over 6 months, I think, 7 months
Yeah.
or so.
hmm
Um, Describe, just so people have some context, describe the situation or scenario you were in kind of right before you came into Dark Label and we started working together.
Absolutely. So I, before kind of making this transition into full-time music, I was working in marketing. And so I had been kind of doing that to pay the bills for, my entire adult life. Um, and it was something where I had always wanted to move to music production full time, but I didn't think I could pull it off. And so I put it off for a lot of years. And then at the end of last year, I kind of began this process of, you know, turning down marketing work, finishing up projects for clients, and just kind of saying, okay, 2023, I'm going to, try to make this thing happen. And it was around that time that I became aware of Dark Label. I've been watching Dan's videos. I've been watching make pop music stuff for years at that point. And so, I was kind of like already aware of this circle of people. I just didn't know about Dark Label yet. Um, and then, you and I were having some conversations, and I think it was actually, right as I was about to kind of take the dive into, full-time music production, where you and I had some really just, pretty mindset altering conversations, things that made me infinitely more prepared to do this than I was even before then. Um, so yeah, I would say that's like kind of a good summary of where I was at, I guess, before kind of diving into this.
Yeah, love it. What was kind of the main problem or problems you were hoping to solve kind of coming into this process working together?
Yeah. So I mean, I would say as somebody who had been working as a music producer part time for about a year and a half at that point, um, I thought I knew what I needed to know to take it full time, and the more I got into it, the more I started thinking through these different situations and like, okay, how do I get clients? How do I build my brand? How do I approach kind of the business mentality just in general? I realized I didn't know what I needed to know to kind of get things going. And so, yeah, it was just kind of a matter of seeing yourself and Dark Label as this unbelievable resource that would allow me to hopefully have the support that I needed to actually make this thing work, rather than just trying to do it all myself and making any huge mistakes.
Why not do it yourself?
I think the reality was, and I guess I learned this kind of in the process of being in Dark Label. This wasn't something that I was really aware of at the beginning of the year when I started this, but I think through the process of working with you guys, there were so many things that I could have done on my own, but probably would have resulted in me burning out or stopping or just not, because I guess a good example would be, kind of the process of taking on my first few clients full time. It was so overwhelming at first. It kind of felt like I was just messing up in a big way. And I think if I didn't have, kind of that outside perspective of talking to you or, talking to James, like it would have been, it might have done me in a little bit if I didn't have anybody else to talk to you about it, or anybody else's experience to kind of work off of in that way.
Sometimes just some validation that we're doing the right thing when it feels like the
Yeah.
wrong thing is super important. I was talking to a kid on the phone yesterday, young producer in LA, about this, and I was like, yeah, no, a lot of times like you're doing the right thing, but because you don't have clarity of what you're trying to achieve, what the end game is, you're not sure
hmm
if you're even doing the right thing. And then you're scattering around like a fish in open
Yeah.
waters, and just going in all these different directions and all around, and doing a lot of the right things at the wrong time, maybe, or maybe you are doing the right thing. You just need to keep doing it. So I think
Hmm.
just perspective on that is, I know that's the benefit I get out of some of the things I'm a part of.
100%. Yeah.
Well, what was kind of the final result? What were big takeaways from working together? Big things you learn? Any results, wins you want to share? Um, Whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. 100%. So, I mean, ultimately, like my biggest takeaway from Dark Label is just that I need more knowledge. That I think I went into this starting this business a little bit cocky, and I got tossed around a little bit by the process, and being a part of the community, talking to you, talking to the other mentors in the program, it just opened my eyes to this whole world of like people are doing this for real. People are doing this to make a living. This is like serious stuff, and there's so many ways in which I could grow. And I think even in just like the past 7 months, I don't even recognize like myself as like either a business person or as a producer 7 months ago. And so I would say the result, to answer your question, is I have reasons for the way I do things right now, whereas before I was just kind of guessing, which I think is like kind of a scary place to be in retrospect.
What's been the byproduct of having reasons for what you're doing? Structure.
So I went from basically not knowing when money was coming in to now I know exactly when money's coming in, which it's honestly crazy how big of a difference that makes. In terms of of course, just like running the business, but also in terms of confidence. I think a big thing that you've talked about, even from when we first started talking together, was like being able to go out and get work as kind of a skill, as a matter of something that you're able to do whenever you need to do it. And so a lot of the sales skills that I learned about and then have been working to develop since being in Dark Label has basically led me from like a I guess shot in the dark method of finding and recruiting clients to actually having a system. And now I have enough work to basically keep me busy. In addition to referrals, that it's not really a concern anymore. Now I can worry about kind of being the best producer I can be for my clients, and advancing myself as an artist rather than worrying about when the money's going to come in or that sort of thing.
It's an important point about referrals, because I know coming up, and we're a slightly different generation, but you may have heard similar things. Where like it's all about referrals, right? Word of mouth. That's how
Mm-hmm.
you build a business. In this business, you get you're really good, you do great work, people talk about you, more people want to work with you. That's absolutely still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Obviously, it's a byproduct of doing good work, but
Mm-hmm.
what we run into a lot, and you've seen this just because you met so many producers in there, is a lot of people will rely only on their network to get
Mm-hmm.
projects, and they'll trick themselves into thinking they know how to get work because they have work from their network, because they are talented and they're good, and that's all fantastic. That's great. But it doesn't replace having the skill in your back pocket, because what then happens, and you're just starting out now, but or not starting out now, but you're in the early stages of full time. But what I
Mm-hmm.
see a lot, and what you've seen with the guys 10 years into full time, when they realize, oh crap, all of my work kind of came from my network and my circle, and those circles have
Mm-hmm.
changed or dissolved or moved or whatever, or my work came from this platform or this person, and that thing is kind of not what it was, or they're not around. And they realize it's a scarier feeling to realize, man, I don't really know how to procure my own work 10 years in to being full time. At that point, your
100%.
identity's rooted into
Yeah,
it, and all that.
totally. I mean, I think the biggest mindset change that really you brought about and like us working together was, success is not a mystery necessarily. It's just a byproduct of having good systems in place. And I think that's something that I mean I have to constantly remind myself of that, because the reality is this is a job, this is a line of work. People have figured out how to do this and do it well, and live their life off of this income. And so I think, when you kind of broke it down for me, it took a couple times. I don't think I was really receptive to this at first, because I had referrals, I had clients. I thought I was set in terms of the amount of work that I had. But when you really broke it down, here are the metrics that you need to be hitting. Here's the number of people that you need to be talking to every week, in order to run a successful business. That kind of took the mystery out of it, which made me feel, I guess, a lot more secure. And it's like, okay, I have the orders of what I need to do, and now I just need to execute. And that was a game changer for sure.
Yeah, and you do that stuff till you don't need to anymore.
Mhm.
Like there is a version where someone's demand is so high that people are just banging down their doors and want to work with them. Absolutely, but that's earned.
Yeah.
Um, we can all kind of want to go from, even me, 0 to 10, right? 10
Mhm.
is our most ideal. I want to go from 0 to 10. It's like, well, you got to kind of go to the 3 and the 7 and all that before 10. The,
Exactly.
the 10 is usually earned. That's awesome. Yeah, and I think the whole thing about doing it yourself too. I mean, it's just hard to compete with. Uh, Not that I'm some genius or anything, but it's just so much data.
Yeah.
12 years of data from running production teams, companies, producer businesses, over 500 or something. There's just hard to compete
Yeah.
with the data if you're one person, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
no, and that honestly, that was a huge selling point for me, was just to see, okay, you know, I know I keep coming back to this, but this idea of like other people have done this, that is such a reassuring thought to me, because I think a lot of this journey for most producers feels like very, like you're the only person in the world doing it. And I think just like to talk to you, and you've seen other people go through the exact same things that I was going through at every stage, and you were kind of able to point that out, be like, hey, this is what's happening. Here's how you're going to get through it. It was just invaluable.
well, good. I also want to ask about our secret weapon, which has never been brought up in one of these client interviews before. Aaron Ferrucci.
Yeah.
Work with Aaron. So Aaron is co-owner of Dark Label and kind of works more on with you guys on like your creative side, portfolio side, second ear on client projects, industry questions. Uh, how was experience working with him? What'd you get from that?
Yeah, Aaron is excellent. I mean, I think, the value that he brought to my experience being a part of Dark Label, um, to me, it's like just as important as the business advice that I was getting along the way, and the guidance there, and the systems that we talked about. Because to have someone of his caliber listen to, let's say I give him my best shot, so to speak, like this is where I'm at skill level wise, like take a listen to this, let me know what you think. To have somebody who operates the level that he does, give you honest feedback about what you could do better, it's completely changed the way that I think about my productions, in general. And there'd be certain things, when I would give him a track to listen to, and we do the track review, over Zoom, like we had been doing. Um, he would listen to things that I thought I could kind of get away with, like, oh, maybe the tuning is sloppy on this one word, but like the listener won't hear it, but Aaron heard it. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you got to fix that." And little things like that. Not that I'm like trying to sneak weird stuff into productions or anything like that, but I think like to have somebody who is really all about quality, um, just give detailed feedback in that way. It demonstrated to me that he, one, really cares about my progression as a producer and the progression of producers in the group, but he also just cares about the art in general. And I think it would have been really easy, for somebody in his position to just be like, "Oh yeah, good job, good track, on to the next." But he does not, hold back in terms of kind of walking you through, hey, here's what would take this song to the next level, kind of meeting you where you're at, skill level wise, and then taking you the next step further. Is like, I think that was kind of an unexpected but hugely important, aspect of being involved in the program.
Yeah, he's a rare bird.
Yeah.
Someone at that caliber that's also that academic and good of a teacher and instructor is rare. It's usually one or the other.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a pretty special thing. So I wanted to give him some kudos in here because everybody thinks it's just me, but in my opinion, I'm that much of Dark Label. It's the other people that are in there, and Aaron and James and all those guys, and you know, Andrew coming up with that new metric tracking document that beats the shit out of mine. Did you see that?
I saw it pop up. I haven't taken a deep look at it, but
it's crazy. And Jesse doing all the research with, Vibrate and all those tools for finding artists and stuff. It's great. It's a cool crew, man. Well, this is going to seem like I totally just teed up this next question. So why Dark Label?
Yeah,
you kind of already answered that, I guess, a little bit. But, I think just as other options pop up in the market, I think there's good options. But any specific reason you went with us and our community over other options you had?
absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing was, I've been around, for, like the golden age of, courses, online courses and like stuff like that, when that first became really popular on YouTube, or just like, these different like instructors coming up saying like, you can make $10,000 a month as a producer. Here's how, all that stuff. And I think that, I was at one point really jaded about, what those types of people could do. And Dark Label is nothing like that. It's 100% like academic. I guess you used that word earlier. I think that's a really good word to describe it. It's like here are the the tools that work now, but also here's a framework for how you can be successful in the long term that doesn't rely on trends, that doesn't rely on tactics that might only be in fashion for a couple months. Making you kind of a better, more resilient business person. And I didn't even really understand the importance of that when I was deciding Dark Label initially. But now that I've been through the program, it just it kind of like reassured me in the decision of like going with you guys, because it really came down to how do you be effective as a business person, rather than kind of showing you some sort of hack or like method to be successful in the short term. And then beyond that, the fact that I had actually been consuming make pop music content, and I had been following other producers that had you had either worked with or that had been in your network. To kind of see that and be like, okay, I'm going to give these guys a shot, because I can see that the producers who are in this sphere are doing legitimate things in the industry, and actually, like pushing the industry forward in a sense, with education and things like that. I think that was, just to go into my like decision-making process a little bit, those were some of the main things that I was considering.
Yeah, I love it. I like the point about the short-term tactics. It's a harder sell, because short-term tactics we talk about them negatively right now, and this we're alluding as they're negative, but they're fun.
Yeah,
they're fun. Well, it's nice to see, but what we would rather do is the inevitable issue with that is like, yeah, if that's the only thing then when it stops working or goes away, or when everybody does it and it kind of dilutes, then you're sort of back to square one. Versus if you just sort of help someone develop the business acumen to kind of come up with their own little ways of doing stuff, and to be able to spot trends, and then they're kind of good forever. Like, and that's, I'd rather do that. And it's honestly easier for me to teach than to try to be keeping up with every little sort of it's chasing, because by the time you master it, it's, everybody in Dark Label, like you've seen that a lot of them come up with their own little ways of doing things and share it with each other. That's way more powerful than me trying to like master every little thing and then teach it to you guys. It just wouldn't be as effective. But what I can do is be like, here's how I look at this stuff, so that you can spot it and kind of, why don't you think about it this way? What do you think is the best piece of content to make? Have you actually thought about it? Instead of like,
Mhm.
what content do I make? I don't know what to make. Well, sit down and think about it. What do you like? What, if you teach people to kind of develop the optics and the acumen, that to me is a
Mhm.
better way to
Yeah.
roll.
Well, and you just reminded me, like, this is another huge part of the program that I really haven't even touched on yet. But the community itself is a huge factor for me in like the way that I've been able to make so much progress in the last 7 months. I think is in part because of the network of other producers, kind of getting to watch their journeys, but also to kind of interact with them in real time. And kind of like there have been so many times where somebody will either make a post or they'll say something in one of like the live streams, and it will like completely change my mindset about something, or it will inspire me to want to try something a different way, with I'm forgetting his name right now, but he was talking about building an audience on YouTube.
Oh,
um
Nathan Larson. Yeah.
yeah, Nathan, him, he even went to the trouble of like recording a video response to a question that I had for him. And he shared that with me. And it was just like, you know, I think that was another important thing too, because he was, he's so many levels beyond where I'm operating right now. And so just to hear stuff like that, firsthand, like almost in like this like private group, like it's reserved, just for us, like that was like a very, it felt kind of like a privilege, to have access to that level of information, in like a closed like educational environment like that.
The community is 100% the best part. I mean, it's a community packaged with, as work with Dan. I think people come to work with Dan and then they get in like, oh no, yeah, Dan's fine. Yeah, we'll call you back, Dan. The community is what's cool. But I think people are just used to seeing everything has like a community attached to it.
Mhm.
And not negating what anybody else is doing, but like it's just a different thing. It's vetted. Everybody's had what, 3-4 phone calls before we even like let them in. Other people will talk,
Yeah.
members that are already members will have calls with them and talk to them. And like, we don't get it right 100% of the time. There's maybe 1% that were like, probably not a fit and we should part ways. But by keeping it more, private and very vetted, even if someone's newer to business,
Mhm.
but still vetted, like, okay, they're a professional person, that really is what my favorite part of it, at least. So
Definitely. Yeah.
it's tempting to just be like, open the floodgates and let a bunch of people in and build this big thing, this big business. And it's just like, man, it's just not what's special about it.
Yeah. And I've even noticed, it's interesting to kind of see, you can tell the people who are getting the most out of the community are also the most active. And I definitely haven't been as active. I've had my head down a little bit, in the last month or so, because I've really been focusing on some, different projects. But like, I think, being active in that community is like the most unbelievable like hack to getting the most out of the program itself. And so I think that's like, I always have to like kind of remind myself to like get back in there and like, keep interacting, like keep doing that, because that's, almost half of what the experience is, in my opinion, is like just seeing what other people are doing. Reminding myself that I could always be doing something different, or learning a new technique, or sharing knowledge or receiving knowledge in some way. So yeah, I would say, yeah, like the community is huge and is not like an arbitrary add-on.
Yeah. I mean, it's networking 101, right? If you're making yourself
Yeah.
more seen, people are more likely going to connect with you. And I get that can be difficult too, because I'm not naturally that way myself.
Mhm.
I like making my YouTube videos and people come to me, and I'll, being a part of community. It takes some getting used to. And like you said, ebbs and flows. Like, you don't have to be addicted to Dark Label and in there all the time. There's going to be some moments where you need to just do your thing and have a little isolation and focus on something. Nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
But hopefully it's, people feel comfortable to like, even if they want just a private intro to somebody and speak off the platform, that's fine too. But definitely
Mhm.
connecting with people there is huge,
100%.
Final question here would just be any advice that you would give to somebody who was in a similar kind of situation, just got into full time, was part time, just got into full time, finally making it a thing. Any advice you would give to them?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think, there was definitely, like there's a leap of faith in transitioning to full time. And there was also a leap of faith in getting involved with Dark Label. And I think, of course, in retrospect, I can't imagine having done any part of this process, in the last 7 months, 8 months without the guidance and like the knowledge and the support that I received from Dark Label during that time. But I didn't know any of that going into it. So it was kind of like it felt like, okay, I'm going to try this thing out. I don't know exactly how it's going to pan out. But I think now looking back, it's like, I'm like thanking myself for having made that decision to get involved with Dark Label, because if I hadn't, um, I just like, and I'm trying to think of a concrete example here. I think definitely in the financial realm, I was doing a lot of kind of weird, nonsensical things in terms of like billing people. I was charging too little. I was, having like people were paying me, like months apart to where I couldn't really expect, when things were coming in. There were just so many aspects of how I was like conducting myself as like a salesperson, as a business owner, that didn't make any sense. And it literally took, phone calls with Dan and, being involved with the community, hearing what other people are doing to kind of like show me that the way I was operating was not sustainable. And now I can safely say, after having like a bunch of months where things were just not working and not resonating, the last 2 months have been the best of the year so far, and it just keeps getting
Nice.
better and better. So like, I think all that to say, I thank myself 8 months ago for making the decision to do this, because there are just certain things about being a producer in general, being an artist in general, stuff that you don't really know how it's going to pan out. But in retrospect, it's like there's no other way it could have been. So I would say Dark Label is definitely one of those things, and I am grateful that I chose to move forward with you guys.